Right off the bat, if I look at question G here, remember this is just a note from yesterday. We're just going to finish it off. We have 3 questions left. Okay. Let's start. Well, let's start with the division symbol. Okay, let's go -9 by 5 divided by. We'll write it as like kind of a fraction inside of a fraction. Okay. Okay, and I'm not going to make this mistake because I learned about it yesterday. All right, hopefully you did too. The rule still kind of applies, but remember this entire fraction, this entire mixed fraction is negative. Okay, so it's kind of like the same rule, but to figure out, to switch this thing into an improper fraction, we're going to take the bottom, multiply by the side, but instead of adding the top this time, because the whole thing's negative, we're subtracting. Okay, so to turn this into an improper fraction, we're going to go 2 times -1, take away 5. So 2 times -1, take away 5. Okay, and all that's going to be over 2. So we get -2 take away 5. Is everybody happy with that? So we should get -7, and don't forget it's over the 2. All right. So that's the fraction, the mixed fraction that we're going to slide in here. Can we see green on red there? Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, so we're going to slide that down into the denominator here. The denominator of the big fraction. Okay. Okay, and what did we say do next yesterday? So this is like kind of your first step. And the next step is we don't obviously like this. I don't like this any more than you do. But we did learn a little bit of a trick yesterday, right? When dealing with when we have fractions inside of fractions, or what do? We can grab the bottom one, right? And do what with it? I think somewhere along here too, we said the two processes were the same thing. You get like fraction divided by a fraction is the same thing as taking one fraction and multiplying by. It's a fancy word, starts with an R. Allie. The reciprocal. And the reciprocal, remember that we're going to take the fraction and flip it. So this next line here could look something like this. -9 by 5. Clean that 9 up so it looks like a 9. Okay, we can take that and multiply by, not -7 by 2. It'll be -2 by 7. That's what we mean by the reciprocal. Okay. Okay, and then you can just do the math on it. Okay, 2 negatives are going to make a positive. Okay, so the 2 fractions are negative. So you know right off the bat the 2 negatives make a positive, so you're not worried about the sign for the final answer. But we can go 9 times 2 would be 18, and 7 times 5, or 5 times 7 would be 35. Okay? Are we done? Yeah? You got to reduce it. Can you reduce it? I don't know yet either. Can you? You got to check it. Remember, what does it mean to reduce? You're going to like check it, see if there's a number, right? You might check to say, okay, can I divide them both by 2? No, I can't divide them both by 2. Can I divide them both by 3? I don't think 3 goes into 35. 4, 5, 6. I think that's as good as it's going to get. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, you'll also like say something like, in the event that you are allowed to use a calculator, which is the case. I don't want you guys thinking that I was talking to Mr. Poley about this as well. Like, it's kind of an unrealistic expectation for us to say, okay, you're coming from grade 8 where you've been able to use a calculator, and then just us to just completely snatch it away from you. That's not the message. Okay? The point of this IB program is to prepare you for the actual IB program in grade 11 and 12, right? So I don't want you to get the impression that you can't use your calculators. It's just know that that is coming in a couple years, okay? So what I'm trying to do is prepare you for that, right? And that's difficult for me too, like trying to work through questions that I would normally use a calculator. Trying to teach you a way to not use the calculator is also tricky for me, okay? It's not easy. So the expectation is that we're not stealing the calculators from you, okay? We're just trying to slowly wean you off of it, okay? So if the reason why I mention that is in the event that you ever had a fraction like something like this, and you typed it into some of the more like scientific calculators, like if you type 2/4 and hit equals, it would do the reduction for you. So you wouldn't have much thinking to do, right? It would automatically know that you could divide both these by 2, and the calculator would just say, okay, we know that this is 1/2, and you'd be done. You wouldn't have much thinking to do. In fact, I think if you actually did if you were doing a calculation, it wouldn't even spit out this. This step is irrelevant. If you were doing the calculation, it would just give you the lowest fraction. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? That's just kind of a sidebar conversation. Okay. My point is I think using your calculator, if you were to type in 18/35 in your calculator, it might not reduce it. Well, it shouldn't reduce it for you if it's not reducible, right? Okay. You want to try the next one? Not too much different, okay? We can maybe go a little quicker on this one. Less conversation, less cleanup from yesterday anyway. So remember, negative 4/7. This is maybe an easier one because it doesn't have the mixed fraction in it, right? You're going to divide that by negative 2/14. Is there something smart you could do? Maybe before that? So remember what's going to happen here. Yes? And why would you might would you might want to? Oof, I'm struggling today. Why might you want to reduce that?
So it's easier to multiply forward.
Yeah. So like that's what I'm saying. So you can use the calculator by all means, but if I were to do this, if I continued with this, negative 4/7, and I multiplied that by 14/2. Now you got to know what 4 times 14 is. Not that it's the end of the world, and if you had a calculator, but if you recognize from the very beginning that you could reduce 2/14 to be negative 1/7, now you're going to have 4 times 7 instead of 4 times 14. Okay, it doesn't change the result. It just makes the math a little easier, so maybe you don't need the calculator. Okay? So things like that. I was going to jump into this question and away we go, and then I started actually, as soon as I wrote this down, I was like, oh, can reduce that, right? So the expectation is maybe not you recognize it right off the bat, but as you start to work through the question, I want you to critically think of, could there be a way to just make this the smallest bit easier, okay? And always just check that. That eliminates the need or the reliance on the calculator anyway, okay? It doesn't matter to me. We can reduce this down. If we don't want 2/14 here, we could make it 1/7. Okay, and then so you'd obviously change this one as well. When you bring it up, okay, in case anyone's wondering, when you bring it up and you multiply by the reciprocal being the flipped version of the fraction. So it'd be 7/1, negative 7/1, sorry. Okay. Do you even need to multiply 4/7? So I want you guys to look at that fraction, those two fractions. We discussed this yesterday a little bit, right? No, we use a different color. What do you see here with these two 7s? The two fractions are attached with multiplication. There is no addition subtraction, so again, that's kind of a relief for you. You're looking at that and you realize, okay, there's no addition subtraction. And then you realize that the 7s are in numerator and denominator. And you think, okay, well, what is 7 divided by 7? Just 1, right? So what'll happen is that those two things end up canceling out, right? And so what's the answer? Also, you got two negatives in there too. I didn't mention that, but two negatives create a positive. Your answer should just be 4, right? And we can confirm that that's the case if you actually multiplied it out, right? And I guess my job is to try and show you a couple shortcuts so that you don't have to waste time going 4 times 7 divided by 4, right? What is 4 times 7? Yes?
28.
Okay, so if we did 28 divided by 4, sorry, 7, not 4. I know what the answer is. That's what I'm looking for. How many times is 7 going to 28? Okay, all this is 28 divided by 7. That's from multiplying the top and the bottom and the bottom. Okay, it just saves you one step by canceling those 7s out because they're in the opposite numerator and denominator. Okay. That becomes particularly useful if you start getting into the sciences and you don't know what like if you have an equation that has a variable in it and you don't know what that variable is, you can cancel them out. Okay, you don't actually, sometimes like in science there's situations, particularly Mr. Ingman's more chemistry, but I'm more physics based. I don't know how much of it chemistry wasn't my jam, but the physics, like there's lots of instances where one variable will cancel each other, like cancel it out, and then what that means is that the whole equation is just independent of that variable. Okay. All right. One last one. Let's have a look at what this one does. Okay. This has got a little bed mass mixed in there. Okay. I would do what's down here first. What comes first? Yeah? Okay, so what do you want to do? So we're going to go 2 times 4. Is that what you're getting at, Colson? Yeah? So we could say, okay, do we want to do anything with the 9 by 2? Or do you want to leave it? Do you want to deal with fractions if you have to? Don't have to? I would just do the math on that too. Right in that line. What's 9 can you do 9 divided by 2? So you're going to have to leave it. Joke's on you. All right. 9 by 2 multiplied by 5 by, Colson wants to do 2 times 4, take away 8. 2 times 4 is 8, take away 8. What on earth are you going to do here? Yes? Yep. Has anybody ever tried to divide by 0 in their calculator? I think we did talk about this. What happens? Yes? What does it explicitly say on your screen?
For me, it's an error.
Yeah, it says error. I think some of them will say math error or something like that, right? You can't divide by 0. It's not allowed. Okay, so if you ever run in this instance, you can't actually get an answer here because you're not allowed to divide by 0. It's undefined. Okay, and I will take the opportunity to explain that to you in a different way when we arrive to that part of the course. Okay, but this might start to make, not that it makes more sense, but I'll give more of an explanation as to why that's the case in a different part of the course. Okay, so we're happy with that? So again, I don't know how many of these you guys got done. I'll give you a little bit more time today, and we can take up anything that we need to take up, and then tomorrow you guys have a quiz, all right? Sound like a plan?